Imagine touching a 500-year-old drawing and finding the DNA of a genius still hiding on the paper. Sounds impossible, right? But here's the crazy part: scientists are now hunting for Leonardo da Vinci's genetic secrets in his artwork, and what they're discovering is absolutely mind-blowing. But wait, there's a huge problem. Leonardo died over 500 years ago, his grave was destroyed, and he never had children. So how can scientists possibly find his DNA? And here's the million-dollar question. What if his genius was actually written in his genes? Today, you're going to practice your English listening while learning about one of the most fascinating scientific investigations ever. We'll discover how researchers are using cutting-edge technology to solve a 500-year-old mystery. Plus, you'll learn super practical A2-B2 English words and phrases you can use in everyday conversations, words like track down, come up with, and phrases for talking about discoveries and investigations. Let me give you a quick preview. Scientists touched Leonardo's artwork with cotton swabs and found something incredible: DNA from plants, animals, and maybe even from Leonardo himself. But is it really his? That's what we're about to find out. Welcome to Lady Show English. So, are you ready to discover what makes a genius and improve your English at the same time? Let's dive into this amazing story. Before we jump into the full story, let me quickly show you the awesome English you'll master today. Trust me, these aren't boring textbook words, they're expressions you'll actually use in real life. First, we've got some fantastic action phrases like track down, that means to find something or someone after searching. You'll also learn come up with, which means to think of an idea or solution. These are super common in work and daily conversations. Then, we have some really useful descriptive words. Invaluable means extremely valuable, not valuable like you might think. And distinctive means special and easy to recognize, different from others. We'll explore science and investigation vocabulary too, like authenticate, to prove something is real, contamination, when something gets mixed with unwanted substances, and genetic material, the DNA and biological information in living things. But here's what I love most: you'll learn natural conversation connectors like "here's the interesting part" and "guess what happened next." These make your English sound so much more natural and engaging. And one more thing, we'll practice talking about possibilities and discoveries, using phrases like could potentially be and believed to have. These are perfect for B1, B2 level conversations. Ready to see how all these words work in an incredible real story? Let's meet Leonardo da Vinci and the scientists on his trail. Leonardo da Vinci was not just a painter, he was an artist, an inventor, and someone who studied the human body. He was the perfect example of a Renaissance man, someone who was talented in many different areas. But here's the fascinating question scientists are asking today: was his genius hiding in his DNA? Could his genes explain why he could see and create things that others couldn't? But there's one huge problem. Leonardo died more than 500 years ago in 1519, and his grave was destroyed during the French Revolution in the late 1700s. Some bones were supposedly recovered and buried again, but nobody knows if they're really his. And here's another challenge: Leonardo never had children, so there's no direct family line to test. So what did scientists do? Wait for this part. They came up with an incredibly creative solution. Instead of looking for Leonardo's bones, they decided to track down his DNA in his artwork. Think about it: Leonardo touched his paintings, his drawings, and his letters. His fingers left behind tiny traces of skin cells, sweat, and other genetic material on the paper and canvas. And guess what happened next? The Leonardo da Vinci project team started swabbing artwork with cotton swabs, just like in a crime scene investigation. They tested a drawing called Holy Child that might have been created by Leonardo, though some experts dispute this. They also swabbed letters written by Leonardo's distant relatives. Here's the surprising part: they found a treasure of biological information. The swabs picked up DNA from bacteria, plants, animals, fungi, and most importantly, matching DNA sequences from a male. But listen to this sentence carefully: the scientists didn't claim this DNA definitely belongs to Leonardo. They're more careful than that. What they're doing is building a method, a system that could eventually help them put together Leonardo's complete genome. One of the researchers, Dr. Norberto Gonzalez Werby, explained something really cool. There's a lot of biological material that comes from the individual that can be tracked to a piece of paper or a canvas that absorbs that. And if you cover it with paint, it has like a protective coat on it. The paint actually protects the DNA like a shield. But here's where it gets really emotional. Why do scientists care so much about finding Leonardo's DNA? It's not just curiosity. They believe Leonardo had something special called unusually high visual acuity, the ability to see details that normal people can't see. His paintings show incredible tiny details that suggest his eyes worked differently, perhaps better than average. If they could find his genes, they might discover what made him such a genius. This is the important part: the team didn't just randomly swab things. They had to develop a special technique because touching art can damage it. These pieces are invaluable, they're worth millions and are irreplaceable. After testing different methods like punch holes, wet swabs, and vacuuming, they found that dry swabbing works best. It collects enough DNA without hurting the precious artwork. And this surprised everyone: the Holy Child drawing revealed an amazing environmental story. The DNA showed where the artwork lived for 500 years. Scientists found DNA from orange trees that probably came from the famous Medici family gardens in Tuscany, Italy. These gardens were known for their rare citrus trees. They also discovered wild boar DNA, which likely came from the paintbrushes. During the Renaissance, artists used paintbrushes made from wild boar bristles because they were stiff and durable. They lasted a long time. Here's the emotional part. Dr. Charles Lee, another researcher on the team, said, "When someone comes up to you and says, 'Wouldn't you be interested in helping find out what the DNA of Leonardo da Vinci is?' How do you say no to that? Can you imagine being asked to hunt for the DNA of one of history's greatest geniuses? It's like being invited on a 500-year-old treasure hunt." Listen to this sentence carefully. The team found that the DNA from the letter and the drawing belonged to something called the A2-B2 haplogroup. A haplogroup is like a genetic family tree. It groups people who share a common ancestor from thousands of years ago. This particular haplogroup makes up only 2% to 14% of males in Tuscany today. It's thought to have originated in Africa about 9,000 years ago when people migrated from North Africa to Europe. But the real question is, does this DNA actually belong to Leonardo? The scientists are honest, they don't know yet. Dr. Lee said, "This is not definitive proof. This is initial observations. They need to test more objects, maybe find Leonardo's living relatives through his father's family line, and possibly test those mysterious bones." Wait for this part. Some experts are skeptical. Professor Francesca Fiorani said the Holy Child drawing isn't widely accepted as Leonardo's work, so testing it might not help. She thinks testing something written by Leonardo's father would be better since he was genetically much closer to the artist. And another expert pointed out that even if they find human DNA on the artwork, it could be from anyone who touched it over 500 years: museum workers, collectors, previous owners. But here's where it gets exciting again. the scientists are not giving up. They're now working with the French government to test more artifacts in France. They want to swab Leonardo's notebooks and lesser-known drawings that haven't been handled much. Other team members are collecting DNA samples from descendants of Leonardo's father. Everyone is hoping that all these different studies will intersect, come together, and finally solve the mystery. Dr. Lee described the whole experience beautifully. It's like watching a movie, right? If you know what the ending is going to be like, there's no gratification in it. But when you're surprised by it, you don't know what it's going to be. That's what makes the whole journey more fulfilling. So, will they find Leonardo's DNA? Will we finally understand what made him see the world so differently? Nobody knows yet. But one thing is certain, this incredible investigation is combining art, history, and science in a way that's never been done before. Alright, now let's break down all those useful English expressions you just heard. These are words and phrases you can start using immediately in your daily life, whether you're at work, school, or chatting with friends. Let's start with the phrase track down. In our story, scientists tried to track down Leonardo's DNA in his artwork. In English, track down means to find something or someone after searching carefully, often when it's difficult to find. The meaning here is similar to hunt for or search for and locate. When we say scientists tried to track down his DNA, we mean they searched carefully through different sources to find it. Here's how you use it in everyday life. I finally tracked down that book I've been looking for at a small bookstore downtown. Or maybe at work, can you help me track down the client's contact information? I can't find it anywhere. It's also great for personal situations. I'm trying to track down my old high school friends on social media. Think about this, what was the last thing you had to track down? Maybe your phone, your keys, or an old photo? You'll like the next one even more. Now let's look at come up with. This is one of my favorite phrasal verbs. In the story, scientists came up with a creative solution to find DNA on artwork. Come up with means to think of an idea, plan, or solution, often when solving a problem. It's about using your creativity and intelligence to find an answer. In our story, scientists came up with an incredibly creative solution means they thought of a new, innovative way to solve their problem. You can use this everywhere in daily life. At work, we need to come up with a new strategy for this project by Friday. With friends, let's come up with some fun activities for the weekend. Or when studying, I came up with a great way to remember these vocabulary words. I make up silly stories. Here's a little task for you. Can you think of a situation recently where you had to come up with a solution to a problem? Maybe a creative way to save money or organize your schedule? Ready for the next useful phrase? Let's talk about invaluable, and this one tricks many English learners. You might think invaluable means not valuable, but actually, it means extremely valuable, so valuable that you cannot measure its worth. In the story, we said, the team was aware of the invaluable nature of the items. This means the artwork is so precious and irreplaceable that you can't put a price on it. In daily life, you'd say, your advice has been invaluable to me, meaning the advice is extremely helpful and precious. Or at work, her experience in marketing is invaluable to our team. For personal relationships, the time I spend with my grandmother is invaluable, I treasure every moment. Think about this, what's something invaluable in your life? Maybe your health, your family relationships, or special memories? Here comes an even better one. Now, distinctive is a wonderful descriptive word. In our story, wild boar paintbrushes created a distinctive texture for oil paintings. Distinctive means special, unique, and easy to recognize because it's different from others. It's not just different, it's noticeably different in a good way. Let me show you. She has a distinctive laugh that I can recognize anywhere. Her laugh is unique and special. Or describing style. That restaurant has a distinctive flavor that you can't find anywhere else. For people, his distinctive red hair makes him easy to spot in a crowd. This word works great when you want to compliment something or someone. Your teaching style is really distinctive, it's creative and memorable. Can you think of something distinctive about your city, your favorite cafe, or even yourself? What makes you or places around you stand out? Ready for the next one? Let's explore authenticate. In our story, scientists wanted to help authenticate whether the Holy Child drawing was really Leonardo's work. Authenticate means to prove that something is real, genuine, or true, not fake or copied. It's often used with art, documents, signatures, and antiques. When we say authenticate the drawing, we mean to prove it was really drawn by Leonardo and isn't a fake or a copy. In everyday situations, the expert authenticated the vintage watch, it's really from 1920. Or with documents, you need to authenticate your identity with 2 forms of ID. Even online, please authenticate your account by entering the code we sent you. Think about situations where you've needed to authenticate something, maybe your identity when opening a bank account, or proving a certificate is real. You'll love this next one. Let's look at genetic material and contamination together because they appeared in the science part. Genetic material refers to DNA and other biological information found in living things. It's the instruction manual for how your body works. In simple terms, it's what makes you, you. In our story, his fingers left behind genetic material on the paper means tiny pieces of his DNA stayed on the surface. You might use this in conversations about health. The doctor took a sample of my genetic material to test for allergies. Or in news discussions, scientists use genetic material to understand how diseases spread. Contamination means when something gets mixed with unwanted or harmful substances, making it impure or less useful. In the story, scientists worried about contamination, maybe modern DNA mixing with old DNA on the artwork. In daily life, there's water contamination in the river because of the factory waste. For food safety, the restaurant was closed due to food contamination. Even metaphorically, we need to prevent contamination of good data with incorrect information in our database. Can you think of news stories you've heard about contamination? Maybe environmental issues or food safety problems? Here's an even better one. Finally, let's talk about natural connectors that make your English sound fluent and engaging. Phrases like "here's the interesting part," "guess what happened next," and "wait for this part" are conversation hooks. They grab attention and make people want to keep listening. These aren't formal, they're conversational and friendly. Practice using them when you tell stories. I was walking home yesterday, and guess what happened next? I ran into my old teacher. Or at work. We were struggling with the project, but here's the interesting part, we found a solution by accident. For surprising news, I applied for 5 jobs, and wait for this part, I got offers from all of them. Try this, think of something interesting that happened to you recently. How would you tell that story using these hook phrases to make it more exciting? Remember, all these words and phrases aren't just for passing English tests, they're for real communication. The more you use them, the more natural they'll feel. And the best part? You're now equipped to talk about discoveries, investigations, science, and so much more. Wow, what an incredible journey we've been on today. Let's quickly recap what we learned. Today, we mastered 3 super practical English skills. First, useful action phrases like track down and come up with that you can use every single day. Second, descriptive vocabulary including invaluable and distinctive for making your English more colorful and precise. And third, conversation hooks like here's the interesting part that make you sound like a natural English speaker. Plus, you practiced your English listening with a fascinating real story about hunting for Leonardo da Vinci's DNA in 500-year-old artwork. How amazing is that? Now, here's my challenge for you. If you learned something new today, leave a heart emoji in the comments below. I want to see how many of you made it to the end. And here's something even better, share this video with one friend who's also learning English. Imagine how cool it would be to discuss Leonardo's DNA mystery in English together. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Lady Show English so you never miss our next adventure. Next time, we'll explore another mind-blowing story that'll help you level up your English even more. Can you guess what it might be about? See you in the next video.